Shaq has just been called out, and the internet is buzzing over a video showing him with 4 white women at the same time. "I got 4 white girls," he says. This follows a string of heartfelt podcast appearances where Shaq opened up about feeling lonely. "I built a 100,000 square foot house all for myself," he admitted. But now, the narrative of a solitary Shaq seems to be crumbling, as the footage suggests he's far from alone. Surrounded, spoiled, and clearly well attended to. "We're cleaning while massaging it," the women are heard saying. Who exactly are these women? And how has Shaq responded to the public finding out about this? In this video, we'll dive into the details. Shaq's 4 women. For a while, former NBA star Shaquille O'Neal's love life has flown under the radar. However, comedian and radio host Jess Hilarious recently stirred the pot by revealing some eye-catching details about his personal affairs. While speaking on The Breakfast Club, Jess offered a vivid recount of her alleged visit to O'Neal's home in Atlanta. Among the various details she shared, one claim that stood out was her observation that he was cohabitating with 4 white women. She compared the situation to that of R&B artist Nio, who is openly in a polyamorous relationship with 3 women. Back in January 2023, the So Sick singer, frequently making news for his personal life as much as his music, was seen publicly holding hands with all 3 of his partners simultaneously. Jess, often referred to as Jess with the Mess for her unfiltered commentary, painted a striking picture of the scene, highlighting activities like cleaning and massages carried out by these women. She described one of them massaging him while another focused on cleaning, emphasizing she wasn't even concerned about his feet. She was massaging him. She also commented on the bed in the house, humorously describing it as massive and comparing it to an aquarium. It was a really, really big bed. It was insane. When questioned about possessing video evidence, Jess confessed she couldn't record indoors since Shaq had prohibited any cameras. Her account left co-hosts Charlemagne, The God, and DJ Envy visibly unsettled. Showing some concern, DJ Envy inquired, "Did Shaq approve you talking about this?" Charlemagne chimed in as well. Jess, however, appeared unfazed and carried on. In response to an Instagram post recounting Jess' claims, Shaq offered a brief reply, simply commenting, "Damn, Jess." That 2-word reaction lit up the internet, with speculation swirling over whether he was amused, annoyed, or merely acknowledging the situation. While Shaq's comment remained vague, online chatter exploded, largely targeting Jess for airing the drama. One individual didn't hold back, saying bluntly, others suggested Shaq might need to consider an NDA moving forward, while someone else criticized her outright, saying she talks too much. Many predicted that Jess would likely lose any chance of a return invite, with one user declaring she's never getting invited again. However, not all the reaction was aimed at Jess, as some questioned Shaq's involvement. One comment read, "If he really cared, she wouldn't have been there in the first place." Someone shifted the spotlight to Jess, inquiring. In the related footage, Shaq playfully mimics weeping before breaking into a grin and sticking his tongue out. As one of the most well-known icons in both sports and entertainment, Shaq's immense wealth, fame, and charismatic personality naturally draw attention from women. This explains why Jess' statement about him being involved with 4 white women went unchallenged. In August 2024, Maria Tichy, a woman who alleged she spent the night with a former NBA star, made headlines, a claim Shaq promptly denied. The rumors ignited after she shared a now-deleted explicit image, which featured a very tall man whose face was obscured. Despite no clear identification, the internet swiftly speculated that the anonymous figure might be the basketball legend. Shaq quickly addressed the gossip, commenting to dismiss the rumors with a straightforward "Nope, not the kid." However, Tichy showed no signs of conceding. She stood by her statements and shared what she described as evidence, including a note purportedly from staff at Harrah's Casino in Atlantic City. Coincidentally, Shaq had been in town that same day, performing at a club located inside the casino. The timeline appeared to align with Tichy's allegations, but Shaq remained adamant, denying he was the person captured in the photo. As expected, fans couldn't resist diving into the drama, with some turning into amateur investigators by examining the man's feet in the picture and comparing them to Shaq's famously distinctive, oversized toes. This isn't the first time Shaq's name has been connected to rumors involving women, with one of the most notable incidents happening back in 2009. At that point, Shaq was still married to his ex-wife, Shawnee, when speculation began circulating about an alleged affair with Laura Govan, who was in a long-term relationship with retired NBA player Gilbert Arenas. The situation became even more explosive due to the fact that Shawnee and Laura were friends and had both been featured on Basketball Wives. Their relationship reportedly suffered as rumors of an affair between Shaq and Govan continued to spread. However, Laura Govan fervently denied the allegations and did so in a way few could have anticipated. In a subsequent interview, she dismissed the claims, humorously pointing to the size of his feet as her reasoning. While her remarks left many in stitches, they didn't fully lay the rumors to rest. Fast forward more than 10 years to 2023, Gilbert Arenas stirred the pot once again, asserting on an episode of his show that the affair had indeed taken place. That said, he failed to provide any tangible evidence to back up his statement. Meanwhile, in a conversation with Carlos King, Laura Govan suggested that the account we've been told might not be entirely accurate. When King directly questioned her about whether she was involved with Shaq or if she had taken the blame on behalf of her sister, Govan hesitated, stating, "I won't address anything until I speak to Shawnee because she's the one who started this entire narrative." Throughout his career, and even after retiring, Shaquille O'Neal hasn't been one to hide his admiration for women, evidenced most recently by his playful interaction with rapper Ice Spice. Appearing at Super Bowl 58 alongside Taylor Swift and Blake Lively, Ice Spice cheered on the Kansas City Chiefs as they triumphed over the San Francisco 49ers. Shaq, who also attended the game, later posted a photo from the event in Las Vegas that featured himself, Ice Spice, Taylor Swift, and others. It wasn't just an ordinary post. Shaq took the opportunity to make his move on the Bronx rapper while expressing gratitude to Taylor for introducing them. Ice Spice, however, didn't directly address Shaq's bold comment. Instead, she subtly acknowledged the moment by sharing a comparable group photo on her Instagram. The image was included in a slideshow showcasing her Super Bowl highlights, simply captioned W. Meanwhile, Shaq found himself in the spotlight again when he sent a direct message to Ariana Josephine, famously nicknamed the Home Depot Girl. Josephine first gained attention for opting to work at Home Depot rather than pursuing the high-paying option of starting an OnlyFans account. Her decision received widespread admiration, but controversy soon erupted after she made demeaning remarks about workers, which stirred backlash online. Shaq entered the fray, reaching out to Josephine via DM. However, before speculations could arise about his intentions, the NBA icon clarified his actions, saying, "Just uplifting people, that's what the Diesel does, baby. I uplift people. Google me." Reportedly, Shaq's outreach was aimed at providing encouragement to Josephine amid the wave of online criticism she had been facing. But Shaq wasn't finished just yet. He raised the bar with a comical Instagram video where he made it his mission to track down the Home Depot girl at her workplace. Donning the iconic orange apron of Home Depot, the 7'1" NBA star casually wandered through the store, his towering presence making the shelves look miniature in comparison. And as expected, Shaq didn't do it quietly. He broke into a rap, lamenting how he's been underestimated throughout his career while also hyping up his latest DJ track, I Know I Got It. Shaq's tendency to send direct messages stirred up even more drama when rapper Tussie publicly accused him of sliding into his girlfriend's DMs. The feud erupted after Tussie claimed Shaq had messaged his girlfriend, Samaria J. Davis, in November 2022, not in a subtle manner either. Tussie, who shares a child with Davis, was especially enraged by one alleged message where Shaq brazenly said, "Let me have that baby," seemingly referring to Tussie's young son. Unsurprisingly, this didn't go over well, and Tussie wasted no time in calling out the basketball icon for his behavior. However, Tussie's remarks were far from the first instance where Shaq found his name intertwined with relationship controversies. Shaq's married lifelong before his direct message dramas came to light. Shaq's personal life made headlines due to his high-profile marriage to Shawnee. The two had their storybook beginning in the 1990s, soon after Shaq started playing for the Los Angeles Lakers. For quite some time, they embodied the image of a quintessential power couple, tying the knot in an extravagant Beverly Hills ceremony, raising a family of 6 children, and residing in a sprawling 31,000-square-foot Florida mansion. Yet beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect life, issues began to emerge. Allegations of infidelity and mounting trust problems led to the pair's initial separation in 2007. Although they tried to salvage their relationship, they ultimately finalized their divorce in 2009. Many have speculated that Shaq's alleged infidelities were the driving force behind their split, as he was rumored to have been involved with Corrine Stevens, Dominica Westling, and Laura Govan between 2003 and 2009, all while he was still married to Shawnee Henderson. Even after all this time, Shaq has openly admitted that his past missteps, particularly in matters of love, continue to weigh heavily on him. While appearing on the Big Podcast with Jason Kelsey, the retired NBA legend spoke candidly about themes of loneliness and remorse. Then, during an episode of Angel Reese's show, Unapologetically Angel, he delved into his personal life, opening up about relationships and explaining why, despite all he's been through, he has no plans to marry again. Reflecting on the past, Shaq didn't shy away from admitting that divorcing Shawnee remains one of his greatest regrets. On the Pivot podcast, he laid bare his past missteps and confessed that leading a double life ultimately led to his downfall, adding that Shawnee carried none of the blame. It was all on him. However, Shaq's reflections on regret didn't stop there. While chatting with Monica on her Apple Music show, Motalk Radio, he shared how he had lost not only Shawnee, who he described as the perfect woman for him, but also another remarkable person like her. His complicated and often turbulent approach to life didn't just impact his personal relationships, it extended into his professional sphere as well. Shaq's headline-making life has long been a topic of discussion, including his famously strained relationship with Kobe Bryant. Their rocky dynamic eventually forced the Lakers to part ways with the iconic duo. Even after parting ways, the animosity between them didn't completely fade. At one stage, Kobe made waves by alleging that Shaq had paid up to $1 million in hush money to silence multiple women. This accusation surfaced during a period when Bryant himself was under investigation for AF************************ assault, further fueling the controversies surrounding him. Meanwhile, Shaq recently made an appearance on Angel Reese's podcast, Unapologetically Angel, where he offered advice aimed at helping her grow her audience and increase engagement for her highly successful show. In the latter part of their conversation, Angel sought his guidance, but instead of traditional tips, Shaq shifted focus to her playing style, appearance, and how those elements might impact her career. He first boosted her confidence by drawing parallels between her and a dominant NBA star, dubbing her the female Antoine Jameson. He praised her scoring ability and unique approach to the game, suggesting she work on developing signature moves. Interestingly, one suggestion veered away from basketball entirely, focusing instead on how she could enhance the way she presents herself. Imagine you, and I'm not imagining. Just let me finish. Picture yourself wearing the same little shirt you had on at the Wayla Nacho Dunkin'. No man t-shirts, right? Reese, visibly uneasy, blushed and shifted uncomfortably as he pressed on. He mentioned that the WNBA had many stunning and attractive black women, suggesting that these female athletes should perhaps take into account what men find appealing. Fans didn't shy away from criticizing his remarks, deeming them inappropriate. One person even commented, "Shaq, you're a nasty F********. You're supposed to be a mentor or father figure to her, but instead, you're making creepy comments like this. Disgusting." However, what he said regarding high-profile stars like Cindy Crawford and Venus Williams was even more unsettling. In 2001, during his NBA career, Shaq starred in a commercial alongside supermodel Cindy Crawford. They seemed to share great on-screen chemistry, but Shaq later added fuel to the fire by concocting an outrageous story about their connection. During an appearance on Los Angeles radio station Power 106 FM, Shaq boasted about having been involved with Crawford and went even further by claiming to have had romantic encounters with tennis icon Venus Williams and R&B star Aaliyah. Dropping such high-profile names was guaranteed to make waves, and it didn't take long before the women caught wind of his remarks. None of them were pleased about being included in what seemed to be Shaq's imagined version of his history, and all three raised complaints with the radio station after tabloids ran with the story. Venus Williams, in particular, issued a formal statement saying she had never even crossed paths with Shaq, and that, if his comments were meant as a joke, they were entirely inappropriate. Eventually, Shaq backtracked on his statements, apologizing and admitting he had only been kidding. He referred to himself as a comedian and emphasized that he had no intention of upsetting anyone. Even his mother disapproved, finding the joke in poor taste. When Shaq finally owned up to making the entire story up, he acknowledged that his mom believed it was an ill-conceived prank. But was such a topic ever suitable for humor in the first place? Nearly 24 years later, Shaq ended up repeating a similar blunder. Shaq has never been shy about voicing his thoughts, but his recent remarks concerning the Detroit Pistons have sparked notable controversy. What began as an offhand comment during TNT's Inside the NBA soon snowballed into a social media uproar, with both fans and the Pistons themselves firing back. During the segment, Shaq incorrectly identified Chauncey Billups as the Pistons' head coach, completely overlooking the fact that J.B. Bickerstaff is the one actually steering the team's resurgence. Rather than acknowledge his error after being corrected, Shaq brushed it aside and outright dismissed the team. However, the Pistons are far from irrelevant this season. After enduring a dismal 14-68 record last year, they've staged a remarkable comeback, now boasting a 37-29 record and securing the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. A franchise that many had written off has transformed into one of the NBA's most unexpected success stories. Unsurprisingly, Shaq's disregard didn't go unnoticed. The Pistons' official account on X wasted no time roasting him, sharing a meme of Shaq ignoring their achievements with the caption, "Nothing new here." Of course, this isn't the first instance of Shaq throwing shade at Detroit. During an episode of The Big Pod, he dismissed them as uninteresting and inaccurately stated they were 4 games below .500. However, his co-host, Adam Lefkoe, promptly corrected him, pointing out that at the time, they were actually 6 games above .500. In fact, they had been on a 7-game winning streak. Despite this, Shaq stubbornly refused to acknowledge their success. Shaq has a well-documented reputation for being particularly hard on younger players, with some of his hazing antics being notoriously outrageous. In a Vlad TV interview, Gary Payton, who was once his teammate during their time with the Heat and Lakers, shared some rather unsettling anecdotes. Payton recalled Shaq's penchant for pulling off elaborate pranks on his teammates, but one specific incident stood out as especially revolting. According to Payton, Shaq's favorite hazing ritual involved dumping a full week's accumulation of his bodily waste on unsuspecting rookies. Shaq has never been one to hide the fact that he enjoyed messing with his teammates, and he has more than enough outrageous stories to prove it. One of the most absurd tales involved him chasing Dorrell right around the locker room, completely naked. As Shaq tells it, he had given Wright an order, but when the rookie shrugged it off as a joke, Shaq decided to teach him a lesson by stripping down and sprinting after him through the locker room. Discussing on his podcast, Shaq broke down his thought process at the time. However, rookies weren't the only ones on the receiving end of Shaq's antics. Even veteran players had to deal with his pranks. Matt Barnes, a former teammate, once recounted a bizarre episode during a regular shoot-around. In one of Shaq's more extreme jokes, Lou Amundsen became an unsuspecting victim when Shaq decided to hide Amundsen's mouthpiece in an unthinkable location, tucked between his own legs. Throughout the entire shoot-around, Shaq maintained a completely straight face, pretending nothing was amiss. Eventually, Amundsen unknowingly put the mouthpiece in his mouth, completely unaware of where it had been. Shaquille O'Neal has faced allegations of idea theft, with one such claim coming from his ex-teammate Steve Nash, who accused Shaq of taking his concept for a reality show. The show in question, Shaq vs. showcased O'Neal competing against elite athletes for various sports. While the show was undeniably entertaining, it sparked controversy when Nash suggested Shaq had lifted the idea directly from him. According to a report, after Shaq was traded to the Suns in February 2008, Nash had pitched an idea involving a reality show where he would challenge top athletes in their own sports. However, the subject wasn't revisited for several months. Then, at the beginning of the 2008 to 2009 season, Shaq surprised the Suns team by announcing his own reality show centered around facing off against top-tier athletes. Essentially the same premise Nash had described. When confronted about the origins of the show, Shaq insisted that Nash's proposal was focused on training with athletes, contrasting with the show's competitive nature. Even if one disputes Nash's claim to the idea, there's another sticky situation involving Shaq accusing his IT consultant, Sean Darling, of wrongdoing. Darling, who served as Shaq's personal tech advisor, alleged that O'Neal stole his personal information and attempted to frame him for utilizing Chow. Darling alleged that the former NBA star retaliated against him because Darling had evidence of O'Neal being unfaithful to his wife with multiple women. The 15-page legal filing outlined O'Neal's interactions with 3 supposed mistresses and his then-estranged wife, from whom he was in the process of divorcing. The accusations included claims that O'Neal exploited his connections in law enforcement to obtain details about rapper Alexis Miller, hacked Vanessa Lopez's phone to delete messages, and reset her passwords. The lawsuit also alleged that O'Neal and a partner disposed of his computer by throwing it into a lake after Darling had wiped the device in what he described as a high-level, government-style cleanup. Additionally, Darling contended that O'Neal believed he had possession of photos depicting him with Dominica Westling, which supposedly led to attempts by O'Neal to intimidate Darling through threats of violence and framing him for child pornography. It's also claimed that O'Neal utilized his law enforcement connections to orchestrate Darling's arrest. Employed by O'Neal from 2008 to 2009 predominantly in Miami, Darling carried out various tasks that allowed him access to the athlete's personal email and phone accounts. However, O'Neal's attorney filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit, which accused O'Neal of privacy violations, racketeering, and inflicting emotional distress. The lawyer argued that the suit had no legal merit and added that even if Darling's allegations were taken as factual, there still wouldn't be a valid case, reinforcing the stance that the claims were entirely untrue. O'Neal's legal representative released a statement characterizing Darling as a former convict who had been incarcerated in a federal prison in Wisconsin for the misuse of Social Security numbers. The statement also claimed that Darling had concealed his criminal history from O'Neal. Additionally, the lawyer alleged that Darling exploited his role to access and duplicate O'Neal's emails and other communications. Over the past year, Darling, through 3 different attorneys, reportedly attempted to extort $12 million. O'Neal himself has had his share of controversies. Back in 2014, he stirred up trouble for mocking someone's physical appearance online. The incident began when he shared a side-by-side photo on Instagram, ridiculing a young man named Jamal Binion by contorting his face into an exaggerated grimace to imitate Binion's features. What Shaq either didn't realize or chose to overlook was that Binion suffered from ectodermal dysplasia, a rare genetic disorder that impacts his teeth, hair, and ability to sweat. This condition had already subjected Binion to relentless bullying throughout his life. Shaq wasn't the only public figure involved. Basketball player Trey Burke and rapper Waka Flocka Flame joined in, and a now infamous post quickly went viral, amassing over 8.4 million views. Understandably, Binion, deeply hurt by the public ridicule, decided to pursue legal measures, filing a lawsuit against the 3 celebrities for inflicting significant emotional distress. After facing significant backlash, Shaq removed the controversial post and replaced it with a picture of himself alongside Shrek, apparently his way of attempting to make amends. However, he didn't stop there. He reached out to Binion directly to offer a personal apology. Although Binion acknowledged the effort, he expressed that a private apology wasn't sufficient. He pointed out that the issue extended beyond him, stating, "He impacted far more people than just me. I think he owes an apology to everyone who faces unique challenges in life." While Shaq's behavior drew widespread criticism, some fans took the outrage a step further, likening him to former Clippers owner Donald Sterling. Sterling, who had been caught on audio making racist statements, was banned from the NBA for life and forced to sell the team. In contrast, Shaq, who at the time held a minority ownership stake in the Sacramento Kings, faced no significant repercussions. Mary Fate, the executive director of the National Foundation for Ectodermal Dysplasias, also publicly criticized Shaq's actions, describing them as particularly appalling. She even penned an open letter, urging him to take more meaningful steps toward making things right. Binion proposed a few ways for Shaq to make amends. He recommended donating to his Hugs campaign or contributing to the Dysplasia Foundation. However, Binion believed that if Shaq truly wanted to right his wrongs, he should pay for costly dental implants, something that could genuinely transform his life. But long before this, Shaq had already found himself in trouble, facing backlash from the media, the Asian community, and even an NBA player named Yao Ming. In the early 2000s, Yao gained attention as the NBA's #1 draft pick, and fans were eager to see how he would perform against one of the league's most dominant centers, Shaquille O'Neal. Yet, before their first matchup, Shaq sparked controversy with an offensive comment. During a December 2002 interview with Fox Sports Net, he mocked Yao by imitating a stereotypical Chinese accent, saying, "Tell Yao Ming, Ching Chong Yanhua," so, while mimicking kung fu movements. The term Ching Chong has long been used as a racial slur, dismissing an entire language and culture as a joke. A journalist later called out Shaq for the remark. Instead of addressing the issue, however, Shaq appeared taken aback and dismissed the criticism, claiming, "I said it jokingly, so this guy was just trying to create something out of nothing. He's just not someone who shares my sense of humor." Eventually, Shaq did apologize, but for many people, particularly within the Asian community, it came across as insincere and lacking genuine effort. Then there's his ongoing feud with Dwight Howard. Even though it's been almost 14 years since Shaquille and Dwight last competed against each other on an NBA court, the bad blood between them still hasn't cooled. Recently, Shaq took to X, declaring he wouldn't mention Howard's name again after clapping back at remarks Howard made during a podcast. But can we really take his word for it? This feud can be traced back to 2012, though their animosity had been simmering for years by then. Shaq had been subtly taking jabs at Howard for some time, but the situation escalated dramatically when Howard began being referred to as Superman, one of Shaq's signature monikers. The comparison gained traction after Howard donned a Superman cape during the 2008 NBA dunk contest, but Shaq wasn't pleased with the association. Shortly after retiring, Shaq made his disapproval very clear. One of his initial bold claims as an NBA analyst was asserting that Brook Lopez was a superior center to Howard. This statement came despite Howard being a 5-time All-NBA first-team selection at the time. Still, Howard wasn't rattled. He calmly responded, "I don't care what Shaq thinks. He played his game, he's done, and it's over. It's time to let go. Just sit back and relax. You've had your era, and it's finished." Shaq, however, thrives on this kind of drama. Over the years, he repeatedly reminded everyone that the title of Superman belongs to him alone. In 2016, he even shared a photoshopped image of himself dunking on Howard, accompanied by the caption, "There can only be one Superman. Hash me." Shaq frequently took aim at Howard using his TNT platform, often launching into criticism without any provocation. Social media also became a tool in his arsenal. Jump ahead to 2024, and their feud was still alive, with the two exchanging jabs on Instagram. This time, it was sparked by Howard accusing Shaq of having blocked him. Howard questioned, "Who blocks someone over a nickname that Warner Brothers owns? Superman isn't even real." The whole thing came across as petty. Then in 2025, during an appearance on The God Show, Howard reflected on the situation, speculating that Shaq's animosity might stem from a desire to confront him physically. In a bid to end the feud, Howard extended an olive branch, suggesting that Shaq join him on a podcast to hash things out. On the other hand, Shaq doesn't appear particularly keen on making amends. Nearly 2 decades of conflict over a nickname. Completely absurd. If you like this video, be sure to select one of the options on your screen to explore more related content.